Alpha, over.
Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha. This is Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. The name is Mark Mike Alpha Romeo Kilo, just down in Sidcup in Kent. And yeah, I heard you were signing off. I wasn't sure if you were signing off completely and releasing the frequency, and I thought I'd just call in and give you a report, old man. G4 YCA M0 JCF.
Okay, Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Fox. This is Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha. Okay, Mark, well, a good copy on you. You're 5 and 9 plus 10 dB at the moment, so nice, easy copy. The name here is Peter. I don't know if you call the male, but I'm in the city of Chester, in the northwest here. And there is north-south propagation by the look of it. That's flashing. Running the Nikon 7300, just running it barefoot into a homemade wire dipole, modelled on the G5RV, but slightly modified by me by mistake. Sounds weird, that, doesn't it? So I'll explain further if you want. But that's the station at the moment, Mark. Very simple station, but I hope a bit of fun. M0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot, Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha, over.
Yeah, Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha, Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. Well, very good evening to you, Peter, and sounding good. It's interesting that on your last QSO I was listening, and you were like 20 over the 9, and just as you were signing off, you dropped right down towards my noise floor of around S6, S7, and I heard you talking about noise on the lower bands, and I was going to jump in and say, yeah, noise not too bad down here, considering I'm sort of 15 miles from London, but I'm using you're 5 and 9 plus 10 at the moment, so you came back up out the noise when you replied to me, and you're sitting around the plus 10 yourself on the peaks, and dropping just below the 9s on a little bit of QSB. But the radio I'm using tonight, Peter, is a little bit older than yours. It's a Trio Tango Sierra 520 Sierra. Just checking the meter now, running about 125 watts barefoot. I know on the tune up it will go up to about 150, 160 watts when tuning. SWR's a little bit high, showing 1.5 on the meter, but that's because I've shifted up the band and haven't retuned the ATU, so it's all a bit false. You know, I can get it down 1-to-1, but we know it's not. The antenna itself is a 90-foot long wire, about 25 feet over the ground, and in an inverted U shape, so the majority of it is horizontal over the ground, and then I've got vertical elements at each end. And when I say elements, you know, just an extension of it, with a 9-to-1 unun coming into the garage where I've got all my big old heavyweight rigs there, Peter. Hope you copied that. Back to you, G4 YCA M0 JCF.
Yeah, okay, Mark. Well, solid copy, no problem whatsoever. You're 5 and 9 plus 10, sometimes 5 and 9 plus 15. And I'm using a 7300, and I've only got the usual familiar with the rig, the power craft, and you're well over 5 and 9 plus 10, sometimes up to 5 and 9 plus 20. And yeah, I know the Trio 520S. I operated one of those years ago. I've got a very, very old, it's not a Trio, it's a Kenwood, which is the same make. It's about 40 years old, and it's a TS-440 Sugar. You're probably familiar with the radio. It's low volt for 13.8, which I use portable. I don't take the 7300 out portable because it's kind of built into the sort of frame of the shack here. But the old 440, it really does work well. I was going to sell it, but every time I take it out, I think, no, I'll keep this. You know, and the audio is so good. The trail equipment, the audio, Kenwood trail equipment, the audio is so good on the sea. It's one of those things you don't want to get rid of. or whether you go out mobile or foot. It's a bit heavy to sort of bolt into the car, but I usually go park up somewhere and I go out portable basically because of the noise level. I live on a housing estate, you might say, very close to Chester Zoo, and when I say I live in Chester, it's a really good one, and I live quite close to that. But when I get out into the countryside, into Delamere Forest or wherever, or somewhere on the side of a Welsh mountain where there's virtually no noise, it makes a world of difference. It's just the home location. I'm troubled with all sorts of things, VDSL interference, Wi-Fi interference, and all sorts here. But most nights I've got an S9 of noise on 80 metres, 40 metres and 20 metres. So anybody I work, they've got to be 5 and 9 plus 10, he's on the safe side. Now and again, I say now and again, and it is very rare, go down to about S5, S6. Those days I've got a feeling are long gone now. But the way that our clock is there, I'm afraid, and I've also got interference on 2 metres as well, but you probably know all about that. The antenna I'm using it's homemade. The telescopic mast is strapped to the rear corner of the house. The rear garden's only about 28 foot deep, if you know what I mean. So the one leg of the antenna runs diagonally across the garden. Just about fits in with about 8 to 10 inches vertically onto another mast. So that leg's horizontal. But the other leg, coming from the feed point, comes down at an angle of 45 degrees into the front garden. It doesn't tell you to do this in any of the areas the antenna book, but if it works, I'll go with it. The original G5RV had a 300 ohm slotted feeder in its design, but on this one I changed it a little while back and I put a 450 ohm slotted feeder, and I cut it long. I made a mistake when I cut it because I had an idea to try and bring the feeder straight to the shack, which was the small bedroom on the front of the house. But ho-ho, when I got the best laid plans, as they say, I cut it 2 foot too short, so I just modified it, put a piece of coax on and run the coax into the shack. And hey-ho, it works. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. M0JCF, this is Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha, over.
Yeah, G4YCA M0JCF. Well, that's really interesting, Peter. Yeah, I know the G5RV. I've got one right next to me here in the garage. I bought it. Now I've been licensed over 4 years now, so I must have bought it about 3 years ago, just after I'd got my 2E0. And, I sort of unrolled it in the garden, thinking in my head, well, I've got a 90-foot long wire, so this isn't going to be a problem at 102 feet or whatever. But of course the problem with it is you've got obviously being a dipole configuration, I could get one length of it down the garden no problem, but the other side of it would have been sort of across the garage and round the front of the house and all over the place, and I just sort of saw that the feeder would be like miles away from coming into the shack. I mean, I've got my other shacks in the loft, like a lot of people. So, somehow I would have got that ladder line up into the loft, etc. And it would just become a bit too complicated and a bit too convoluted. I did have an idea of cutting it down to make an off-centre fed dipole or something like that. But it's something for the future. I'm not too worried at the moment. As you say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I find that fairly really well with the long wire. You know, it's not the best antenna in the world by a long shot, but it does work. And considering it's just a long wire with all the inherent noises you get with long wires, I've only got a couple of earth rods in the ground, and it works very well from 160 meters up to I've used it on 10 meters, but it's not so good on 10 meters, 12 meters, but definitely 15 meters and below works very well. And luckily I don't have your noise problems. I do have the noise problems on the lower bands, 160 and 80 in particular, and 40 meters upwards, the noise isn't really a problem. It can get noisy on 40 meters, especially in the evenings, and it also depends what radios I'm using as well. I find this old Trio and my FT101ZD, they seem to be less sensitive to the noise either side of your signal. There was a bit of noise on your last transmission. Signal's holding up very, very loud, but I backed off the RF gain about 75%, and you're still reading S9 to me, and but very, very clear, because obviously I've got the signal to noise ratio right the way down. And I find that with these older radios, that, you know, if you play about with the controls very, very carefully, you can make it do wondrous things that, you know, you'd expect from a DSP rig. I think the most modern rig I've got is my TS-520S. A beautiful rig, great DSP, great filtering and all the rest of it, but not half as much fun to drive. Not like these old girls, you know. I've got a couple on the go at the moment. I've been telling people recently, you know, I've got a pair of summer camps, the Yaesu copies. I've got the FR100B receiver and the FL100B transmitter. They need a lot of work. I bought them just before Christmas, but they do need a lot of work. They power up, but that's really about as far as they go. So that's a future project, those pair. And I've got a Swan 350 as well, which had no power supply. Now it all looks good inside, so what I will do is I'm building a power supply. I'm actually using or will be using the HT transformer from an FT101, and I've got a couple of filament transformers, etc., and I'll build myself a power supply. But you know, it's all a work in progress, and just keeping these old girls alive. As I say, 2 meters and 70 sems. I've got some old Trios for that as well as more modern Kenwood gear for VHF UHF. I'm not plagued with any noise whatsoever on VHF UHF. I mean, 2 meters is as clear as a bell. Absolutely no noise whatsoever. Don't often go on 70 sems, but when I have been there, both FM and SSB, no noise whatsoever. So, you know, I'm really quite blessed in that sense. But yeah, signal's holding up really, really well there, Peter. And I'm just checking the clock on my wrist, and it's gone 10 o'clock now, so I'm going to close down for the night. And I know you were closing down anyway. Really, I only called in to give you a report, which is always the way, isn't it? You get stuck into a rag chew, and you know, you just can't put it down. But I've got to, because I've got to get back into the family, and then get myself all showered and get the day's filth off me and all that old nonsense. I mean, I'm in IT. I only sit at a desk all day. You wonder how you get so stinky, don't you? But I'm going to get myself in now. I'm going to go and have my shower, etc. Get myself horizontal. Maybe watch a video or some nonsense like that for half an hour, and then that will be it until tomorrow morning, and then we start it all over again. So can I just say, Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Great hearing about that antenna and all the equipment that you've got. And yes, that was the last thing, wasn't it? The TS-440. Yeah, I do know the radio. I've never owned one. I've never operated a 440. I've had a TS 450, 450 SAT. It was a lovely rig, but I bought the TS-520 because I wanted the DSP capabilities, and the 450 wasn't old enough to to hang on to, so it got sold on. And I'm sort of buying these older radios, like these old hybrids and valve radios from the 60s and the 70s. I think that's the way that I'm going. A little bit of homebrew as well, and a few Chinese kits, etc. Currently got a micro SDX, little Chinese 8-band transceiver, QRP transceiver, works incredibly well. But I'll talk to you about that another time, Peter, because I'm wrapping up here, and as is always the way, you say goodbye, and it takes us 20 minutes to say goodbye. It must be a trait of hams. I don't know where it comes from, but no one can say a simple goodbye, can they? And I am the world's worst for it, as you might have just gathered. So I'll wish you best 73, Peter. Have a great evening, and look forward to catching up with you again in the near future. So I'll hand over to you for a final, and I say a very good night to you. Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha. This is Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Fox saying thank you and good night, and bye bye for now.
Yeah, okay, Mark, all copied, okay. I don't hold you up there with too long and over. Speaking of the old radios, I quite like them. I was with a guy the other day, Ray up at the Shoreham on Sea, and he was on a KW Atlanta, which is about 50 odd more years, 50, 60 years old. And it sounded great, it sounded absolutely wonderful. He just refurbished it, put some new bottles in, but it was doing a great job. And I know some of the guys in the radio club, they also collect some of the older gear, so to speak. I would as well if I had the room, but I haven't got the room to store anything, so I've only got a very small house. And the station manager got mad if I put something else in here. you know what I mean? You probably know the story. Anyway, Mark, thanks for the QSO. I'll find the on this one. I'll wish you 7 please, of course. And it's a pleasure talking to you, so I hope we do it again another day. And you can tell me some more of your adventures. M0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot, back in for the final bar. He says tongue in cheek. This is Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha, over.
Yeah, cheers, mate. And of course, I know the KWs very well. I belong to the Cray Valley Radio Society. It's my local club, and they did the KW weekend a few weekends ago, and they're all big KW enthusiasts in there. And of course, the Swan 350 I've got is a copy of one of the KW radios. But we could spend all night talking about them and getting into all sorts of trouble. I'll just say a good night, and I won't be picking up the microphone again, Peter. Very good evening to you, and good night. Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot going QRT. Over to you, Peter, with your station G4YCA. Good night.
Yeah, okay, Mark. Well, all the very best to you. Thanks for the chat, and we'll do it again. This is all for Yankee Charlie Alpha signing clear. Bye, Mark. All the very best. This is Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha with QRT, but I'll just check the frequency before I go. This is Golf 4 Yankee Charlie Alpha. If anybody would like a quick super report or whatever,